Sawyer, I saw you posted the picture of this new larger Model Y. Walk me through what you're seeing.
Yeah, so Tesla China, they've filed, I forget what the actual filing is called, but a regulatory filing with the Chinese government. And in the filing that shows 2 new photos of a brand new Y that they have sort of officially unveiled or maybe revealed on their Weibo account. And they're calling it the Model Y L, it looks like. So it'll be 6 seats, about 7 inches longer than the current Model Y, new wheels, new seats. Looks like a new maybe light gold paint color. And I think that this is really a vehicle that people have been wanting from Tesla for years now. I think the problem with the standard Model Y is great. Obviously, it's been the #1 best-selling car in 23 and 24. But people wanted a larger SUV at more of a Model Y price. And unfortunately, the only way to get a larger SUV at Tesla was to step up to the Model X. But that was like 30, 40 grand more, which like a lot of people don't want to fork over. And yeah, the standard Model Y did have 3 rows, but it wasn't a true 3 rows. It's honestly kind of a joke, to be honest, the 3rd row in the Model Y. So this will be more of a closer to a true 3-row Model Y or SUV rather. 6-seat configuration will be interesting. I think it'll be probably likely be similar to the captain chair setup 6-seat configuration that the Model X has. But I think this should sell really well. Tesla says it's going to come out in autumn of this year. It's interesting that they're sort of unveiling this now. I don't know if what the rules are in China in terms of like when you have to file for certain things before a product actually comes out. So they might have not had any choice. But now everyone in the US for everyone, like we covered this in the last podcast, the $7,500 EV credit is ending this quarter. And this new Model Y isn't going to start deliveries until Q4. So now it's sort of like, are people going to wait until Q4 to get this thing? Or are they just going to pull trigger now on maybe a smaller Model Y? So that'll be sort of an interesting dynamic to see. But yeah, I think this is something we've been wanting Tesla to do, expand their lineup just in general, larger Model Y. I think we're still going to see more models, more affordable models from the US, or in the US rather. That's different than this one. So, but I don't think we're going to probably hear about that maybe for a couple months. So, but I'm glad they did it. It looks like a great vehicle, and it's a bit larger version, literally. They're like the best-selling car in the world. So what could go wrong?
Why reveal this in China first?
They tend to launch new products in China first. And I think that's partly because China is the best at ramping up vehicles in any other continent. And Giga Shanghai is extremely efficient at ramping up vehicles. They do it. And so I think they sort of work out all the kinks there and then maybe pass those learnings on to Giga Berlin, Giga Texas, and Fremont. But they can just do it much quicker, ramp up quicker, get these things sold quicker. So, but unfortunately, this means are people going to have to wait longer in the U.S.? What kind of impact does this have on short-term sales for Q3? That's sort of the question now, I guess.
Got it. Omar, what do you think when you saw this?
I was really happy to see it. I've been saying they should do a bigger and a smaller version of the Model Y for some time. I think the focus of these new vehicles, and we've been talking about the new, more affordable models. It looks like in addition to that, they've got sort of higher end models as well. And I think really the strategy is squeezing additional utilization out of the Model Y line. They've got Model Y lines running on 4 factories in 3 continents. And I think these 4 factories could be producing double the volume of vehicles without major new CapEx investments. So can we squeeze some more out of those existing factories without some massive ramp up, without building a new line, without building a new factory, and start to address some segments that we weren't addressing with the existing Y? Let's say, for example, people who have 4 kids, people who maybe want a smaller, cheaper car. And it seems like that's the focus here, is just squeezing utilization out of the existing lines. They don't have to go through a Model 3 ramp situation to get this to market. They're leveraging the investments they've already made, and they can get it ramped and onto the market quickly. So that, I think, is really exciting for Tesla investors who've been kind of disappointed by the vehicle business. Adding new SKUs and trims and vehicle models, I think, really drives growth here. So I'm kind of intrigued, and I think there's more to come in terms of lower end models as well. I think probably the reason they unveiled this in China first is just for regulatory reasons. If they could keep it secret until September when they start producing this, I think they probably would have.
Yeah. My guess is that this new Model YL will probably be like $5,000 to $8,000 more expensive, but it's not going to be $5,000 to $8,000 more expensive for Tesla to build. So this is going to be a much more profitable vehicle than the standard Y is. It looks like it'll probably use a similar battery and whatnot. Curious what the range will be. That'll be interesting to see. But it's about 200 pounds heavier, so not massively heavier, just a little bit longer. Yeah, I think it'll do really well, specifically in the U.S. market. I think the Chinese people will like it too, but specifically U.S., they love their large SUVs. This is like the perfect size, I think, for most people. My guess is that some people, this is about 2 inches shorter than the Model X, but 7 inches longer than the current Model Y. So it's sort of in the middle there. And I think people are still going to say, we want a true, more boxy, full-size SUV that at a price point closer to the Model Y. That's not what this is. This is more of a mid-sized SUV. Granted, it's still bigger. It's still going to have more cargo space and whatnot. But my guess is there's still going to be those people that are complaining that have been wanting something larger for years, that this doesn't necessarily quite fit their needs. But I still think this will be a really good seller. It's going to put a lot of pressure on existing OEMs with their larger SUVs as well. So competition heating up in the EV space.
Yeah, I would agree with you. It seems like, especially in America, people do love their SUVs. I believe we have probably the largest percentage of population that gravitates towards them than outside the rest of the country.
Yeah, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if this even hurts Model X sales further, because a lot of people get the Model X just because that's the only large SUV that Tesla really sold, because they just couldn't do the Model Y. It's just too small. So now they have this option of getting essentially a larger Model Y, but with an interior now that is, in my opinion, quite close in terms of luxuriousness to the current Model X. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
What do you think of the timing, Omar, of them unveiling this? I know that maybe it was because they had to, right? They would have waited, but doing this about a week before earnings.
Yeah, I mean, I think they have a lot more in the pipeline. I think they've got some new affordable models too. You know, I think about it kind of like the iPhone 6, right? They started with one iPhone size, then they started making a bigger iPhone. They made a smaller iPhone too. So that kind of just expands the TAM. They were losing some of those big phone sales to Android. This is kind of the same thing, using the same production line, using the same investments. We're seeing the bigger version. I bet you there's a slightly smaller version coming that's cheaper as well. And yeah, I'm hoping that this lets them squeeze some utilization out of their lines. Financially, it could be a boon for the company because without having to make massive new investments, you've got this bigger, higher priced version, increasing margins, increasing economies of scale, driving down the cost for all three versions, and then enabling a more affordable version too. And, you know, Tesla has always kind of kept their vehicles the same. You know, if you look at the rear wheel drive Model Y compared to the all wheel drive, there really isn't that much difference. This third row, and, you know, an actual third row with legroom, unlike the previous version of the Model Y, is, I think, a real selling point that people will justify paying the extra few $1,000s for. And that's good for the bottom line.
And so you're saying your vision is kind of that second row is capped in seats, and there's a row behind it that has 3 seats?
Yeah, I think that's how well, I guess technically if it's a 6-seater, it would have to be 222. So
why? But
but
put
I have to
222?
imagine they'll
Yeah.
have like a 7-seat option as well. Because that'd be weird if they didn't. But I think the goal here is like Tesla did a great job of building all these incredible factories, but then they had all this capacity that they're not using because they're not selling enough. So I think they have like 3 million of cars of capacity that they can build out of all of their factories combined. But right now they're only doing, let's say 1.6, 1.7 million a year. That's a lot of extra capacity, which actually, if you're not utilizing that extra capacity, that really hurts margins. Because you're not, as Omar said, you're not getting economies of scale as much as you should be. So the goal here is to use existing Model Y lines and to build this larger Y, and likely my guess is some other version of a more affordable Y in the US later on. Build all of those on the existing lines and just build out or use that excess capacity that's currently there right now. So not only will this Model Y L be good from a margin perspective, just because it's probably similar in price to build versus the current Y, but it'll cost $5,000 to $8,000 more. But it'll allow them to bring down overall the cost per vehicle built because they'll be able to utilize all that excess capacity. So
yeah, I mean, it's not a sort of ground up new kind of Rivian R1S or Kia EV9 style EV that a lot of people might have wanted. But unlike doing that, They can do this quickly. They can ramp it in months, not, 12 to 18 months. And they can get it onto the market very fast all around the world. So this is a good sort of intermediate step for them to do ahead of fleshing out their vehicle lineup in a more substantial way. And I think for new manufacturing lines, they really want all their new manufacturing lines going forward to really be autonomy focused and built for autonomy first. So what's that going to look like? It may look a little bit different, but when they had their 1010 event and they showed off the Cybercab and the Robovan, everyone just kind of shrugged them off. They didn't really see it as realistic given that Tesla didn't have any robotaxis on the road. Now as the service in Austin scales, I think it's starting to make more sense what they're doing with the unbox process and the Cybercab. And this is kind of, I think, a intermediate step to hold people over in the meantime.
In the last 5.5 years, Tesla's really only unveiled or introduced one new model, which was the Cybertruck. And that's only doing like maybe 5,000-6,000 units a quarter right now. So that's not great. So really, for half a decade, we haven't gotten a normal model. So this will be the first time in half a decade that we've gotten a new model from Tesla. And so it's going to be interesting to see how it impacts demand for Q3 in the US and when they start production in the US. Unlike in the past where Tesla China was the first one to sort of ramp up production of new models. With this new Refresh Y earlier this year, that was the first time that they ramped a new vehicle across all of their factories at once. And mind you, this was the best-selling car in the world at the time, which is extremely difficult, almost about 1.1 and 1.2 million units a year. So I wouldn't be surprised, just so they don't have any Osborne issues, that they ramp this thing at the same time across all factories that will sell it. Because I have to imagine that a lot of people in the US might be putting off a Q3 delivery now that they know this thing is coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, I think there probably will be some of those people. At the same time, $7,500 off an existing Model Y, that's a pretty good deal too. We'll have to see how it does, but I think it's really kind of underappreciated that new vehicle introductions have been the growth driver for Tesla. When they did the Model S and the X, that expanded their audience. When they did the Model 3, that expanded it further. When they did the Model Y, that expanded it further. Vehicle sales don't tend to just sort of skyrocket on their own perpetually. It's really been expanding into new segments that has been the growth driver for Tesla. But they haven't done that much really, since the launch of the Model Y. And I think that was a strategic choice that was kind of controversial. But there's risks to it. There's risks to building a new line, to cannibalizing existing models. And I think their decision to sort of focus on autonomy has left the vehicle lineup without some of those major new investments in, let's say, a van or a larger SUV. That could have been an easier way to drive growth in the automotive business.
Yeah, I think unfortunately Elon was probably just doesn't care about selling cars as the way he did 5-10 years ago. I think he probably feels like he mostly accomplished his goal and what he wanted to do in the EV market. And now I think he's really, really focused on autonomy and robotics. But the bread and butter of Tesla's income and revenue still to this day is car sales. And it will likely be for the foreseeable future here before, until Cybercab and robotaxis really ramp up. So I'm glad I've been wanting them to expand their model lineup. People still want to buy cars, and they're going to buy cars for years to come. And we won't have to worry about, at least with this Model YL, worry about cannibalization of the smaller Y, because this is actually a good thing. If it moves people up market, so to speak, Tesla gets more money, more revenue, more profit, and people get a larger vehicle. So
we hope you enjoyed this Gigacast clip. Of course, if you want to check out the full episode, we have that right up here in the corner, the latest video. In addition with that, make sure that you're subscribed to this channel for more amazing Tesla and Elon Musk content coming from the greatest minds in the space, Omar and Sawyer. Thank you. Big thank you to Jacob Hilton for clipping up this video. He puts out a ton of Tesla content as well. The link to his YouTube is in the description. Appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll see you on the next one.